Carl Taylor here at the 8th Annual Landlocked Film Festival with a bunch of the cast of Route 33, the third installment in the Route 30 trilogy. I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic down, let you guys introduce yourselves real quick, and then we'll kind of go from there with some questions.
Hey, my name is Noah Applebaum.
Who do you play?
No, we're going to get to that in the questions. Who do I play? Do we get to that in the questions, or should I just...
Yeah, you can talk about it
Can
now.
you just ask me who I play real quick?
Who do you play?
I play Bearded Sproul in the third installment of the Route 30 trilogy.
I'm Mr. Ed, and I play a fella called Mr. Ed.
I'm Ray Ficca, and I play Agent Roy.
I'm Jamie Rose, and I'm actually not in this movie. No, I play G-Woman.
I'm Dave Cowgill. I play Torque / Glenn Cheevers. And let me just say, it's a thrill to be in Ohio. I'm sorry, Idaho. Idaho. Thank you.
So I think really quick, since we got a first cast of actors we've had through tonight, I want to ask you guys one question. I want to ask what it's like to act on an independent film. And the first thing I want to ask is, how did you get signed up for this?
Well, John Putch offered me $100,000 to play Bearded Sproul. I said, absolutely not, too low. So I put the spurs to him, bumped it up to $200K, and yeah, arrived on set. An independent film usually sucks, honestly. It's a lot of hard work. You don't get paid anything, and it's just a grind. But a John Putch movie is a cut above any indie film I've ever been on. I mean, this dude is so organized. He's brilliant. He's giving. He's kind. He's an actor's director, and you just love working with him. So it's just a fantastic experience. And yeah, Route 30 movies are unlike any other independent film that I've ever been on.
The reason I'm in the movie is because in the first movie, he tried to find a person to play the role of Mr. Ed, and that was me. That's why he chose me. And all three movies, I'm in all three movies. Each movie stands by itself. Each movie gets better and better and better. Route 33 is the apex, it's the top.
I was connected with Route 32 and Route 33 through Totem Pole Playhouse, where John and I have both worked. He directed me in a couple of shows there, and ended up putting me in the film. You know, he needed a guy with big hair, and I was that guy. And working on an independent film is great because it's independent, and you know you're free. Proud to be an American.
I've known Putch since we were both teenagers. We did an after-school special together in 1981. So I've known him most of my adult life, and working on an independent film with Putch feels to me like doing small theater, where everyone is in it together and there's not a hierarchy. It doesn't matter if your part is big or small or medium, or whether you're doing lights or camera or doing backstage interviews. Everybody wants the product to be wonderful, and we all love each other, except we're not sure about Dave.
What? What was the question? I'm so sorry.
I'm going to give you an opportunity to answer our next question. Here's our next question. Why should you act in an independent film? What advice would you have for the young person whose friend just said, hey, I'm making a movie, you're going to be in it? Why should they do it?
Thank you for asking that question, staff. I think being in an independent film is so freeing. Because believe me, I've been in huge, big budget features, big TV shows. You probably recognize me.
He's Arnold Schwarzenegger.
However, in an independent film, the person in charge when you have a question is right there. Go shoot right there. See this guy in the hat? So whenever you have a question or when anything happens on the set, that's who you go to. You don't have to go through all these channels, and it's a family environment, so you don't feel like it's a big budget thing where there's 25 producers. That's the guy you go to, you ask a question, you work it out, and then you do your craft.
And also, just if you want a snack or something, you also ask him.
Right. If I want something to eat or a bottle of water, I also go to him. What is that?
If you want a DVD, which are available for purchase.
DVDs? For example, see how that works? See how quick that was? This is part 3. We got the whole set here for you. Freedom. The word is freedom.
And DVD.
And DVDs.
And now a quick word from the 8th Annual Landlocked Film Festival with John Putch, director of Route 30, Parts 1, 2, and 3, which we're showing here at the Landlocked Film Festival this year.
It's a trilogy.
It's a trilogy. John, I wanted to ask, how did you go from the part where you had an idea for a movie to the part where you were making a movie?
I just basically had to save up the money, and once I knew I had enough saved, I said, okay, now I'm going to do it. So it's quite simply that.
What advice would you pass on for the kid that just got out of school, has a great idea, maybe somebody that wants to make something but isn't quite sure that they can get there? What advice would you pass on to that person?
I would just say don't let anybody tell you you can't. Get your camera and your buddies and your actor friends and come up with something and go off and shoot it. Edit it at home on your laptop like I do, and there's nothing preventing you. So get out there and make movies on the weekends, short, long, whatever. There's no excuse to not do it. And if doesn't come out good, it's okay. No one has to see it. You just go on and make another one. So,
absolutely.
yeah.
So this is the third part of a trilogy, and even though it looks great, I'm sure it didn't all go as smoothly as it looks. What things would you kind of pass on, or do you wish someone had told you when things weren't going great to kind of keep your head up?
Well, I do these movies because they are actually pleasant and they are low stress. My real job in television and in Hollywood, it's much more stressful. So for me, these things are the outlet for me to have a pleasant time. But nothing is really that important, and you're making a dumb movie in the end. So nothing should stress you out, and you can always fix it. You can always adjust. You can hook, you can zing. If something comes up and you can't shoot in this place, well, where can we do this scene? How about over there in that place? And then you find a way to make it work. So there's no stress. Just anything can be done. So.
And is that why it's low stress? Is it that it's the thing you love? What makes it so low stress compared to your day job?
Yeah, because there's nobody standing behind me saying do this, do that. It's just literally I can make the film like I was born to make. So.
Absolutely great. Hey, John, thanks for joining us here at the 8th Annual Landlocked Film Festival here in downtown Iowa City for the third time.
Third time. One of the only festivals to show the film, all 3 films in the trilogy. Thank you, Landlocked.
Here with the crew of Deliver Us from Evil. We're going to go ahead and start with a round of introductions.
All right, I'm Chris Johnson. I'm the producer.
I'm Christian Calabrese, the cinematographer and grip department.
I'm Bill Davlo. I'm one of the actors. I'm Scott Awald. I'm also one of the actors.
And I'm Craig Roth. I was an actor as well.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. One of the first questions I wanted to ask you about is how did you get from that place where you had an idea and then you ended up with a story? What got you guys there?
All right, so our director, who isn't present, had an idea for the story. Me coming on as producer, a lot of things had to get changed to make it like logistically capable of actually filming. A lot of people come up with stories, and they're great stories, but if you look at your budget, and it's like, can we really do this? So once we got that done, we thought we really had something solid. We didn't have to change a whole lot, but just little things here and there, like locations and whatnot. And
what was your biggest challenge in getting that production off the ground? You mentioned you had to change some things. What were they?
Locations were the biggest. We were using actual firearms with fabricated dummy rounds. So they actually shot and made a huge, like a louder than a gunshot noise, and we couldn't shoot in city limits. Also, so we had to find a place where the owners of the property were comfortable with us doing that, and that was a big challenge. So we had people kind of wish-washy on it, and then when push came to shove, I'm like, yeah, okay, we're ready to shoot. They actually changed their minds, and at the last second, we had to change one of the primary locations for the film, and as producer, that was up to me. I had to move the whole production from Fargo, Minnesota to the Twin Cities on the drop of a hat. And I think that was the most challenging thing. Also, I had the police force helping us out in Fargo. And then that had to get changed too, and convincing the police to come down and let us use their vehicle and everything like that, and had to do that twice. That was nuts, but we got it done.
What did you learn from that process? What notes, what advice do you have from someone that's beginning to filmmake? Somebody that has already started this process, already has an idea, has already started, and all of a sudden they find out they've got to change all the locations. What did you learn from that process that you would pass on to a budding filmmaker?
I think the most important thing I've learned that no matter what, if everybody is truly as passionate as they claim to be, there are going to be a lot of arguments. There's going to be heads butting, there's going to be conflicts, there's going to be the potential for fights. We didn't have any, thankfully, but we did come very close. Oh, we definitely wanted to. There are going to be moments when you're shooting on location in the freezing cold where you're just going to wake up and stare at a wall for 20 minutes saying, I wish, I want to go home, I don't feel like doing this. And you need to have that other person there who's just going to be slapping you on the shoulder going, come on, come on, come on, let's go. And even if you get to the point where you just want to say, leave me alone, I don't want to do this, you need the other person to just say, no, we're going to do this. You need someone to force you sometimes, because when you finally get on set and you finally work on it, oh, there's nothing like it. No matter how angry you get, there's nothing like it when you're finally out there making it. The adrenaline is just, it's killer.
So we got the answer from the production crew, but I wouldn't leave you actors alone for half a second. What do you guys think? We've talked about production, we've talked about having to pivot location, we've talked about all of those sorts of things. What was that like on the other end? Guys that maybe, you're not acting for a career, you do a lot of other things, and you came out for a project you believe in. What's it like to be involved in a small production? Why'd you get involved?
Well, I love acting, and when I first got the script from Rob McDermott, our director, I said, I have to do this because it was such a good script. It was compelling. I thought it was really relevant, and it was a great storyline. And the character was really challenging. My character, Frank, and when I first talked to Rob about it, I started going into this backstory. He said, I don't want to know a backstory. Okay, I just want you to come up with this, and that's just between you and your character. And that's really the first time that's ever happened with me, with a director before, that I don't want to know a backstory, with it. But it was really the strength of the script. And then after meeting Chris and Robert, and I just said to myself on the way home, these guys know what they're doing. They know what they're talking about. So yeah, that's what made me want to be a part of the project.
And you were talking about all the different things we had to put up with. Just talking about the cold and the many different things. And I think the part that made it you wanting to finish and go through with it all was the fact that they let us watch the dailies every day after we finished shooting. And you got to see the quality of the work that these guys did, and it made you want to continue on, and you wanted to finish the product, and you wanted to be a part of it. And it was extremely enjoyable, even though it was 30 degrees that day. We were shooting outside, and we were freezing to death and eating 6-hour-old Spam casserole, but it was fine. And you went through it, you pushed through it, and you enjoyed it, and it was just a great project. And it was a great group of people to be with. They were always very focused and always, talking, making sure that we didn't have to deal with the behind-the-scenes stuff. They took care of it, and to change the locations, we didn't have to really worry about. They took care of it, and we went along with it because we enjoyed the project.
Yeah, as an actor, you want to be involved in, and it's, as I echo Bill's, when I read the script, it was like, this thing is awesome, I got to do it. And it's something that's obviously not my personality, so it was a stretch for me. It was wonderful to play a guy like that as a drifter. And I went through the same backstory thing as Bill did when I talked to Robert. I asked him about it. He goes, no, that's up to you. I don't want to know anything. And he gave us freedom to do our job, which was wonderful. And like you said, yeah, I didn't even know that you had to change the location. You just told me where to be, and that's where we went. And it was great, and we were treated well. Even though we were freezing, we'd see those takes at the end of the day, and it was like, wow, that was all worth it. And then when we saw the final product, obviously, we were all blown away because it turned out so well.
I can say one last thing as far as what advice to give.
Absolutely.
So I think some advice to give to some filmmakers out there who are on the fence or want to start something but just aren't sure they have the drive to do it. I would say just do it because it's going to be an accomplishment whether or not you fail or succeed. And as far as any advice, I would get great actors or the best actors that you can possibly find, because it makes your job making the film a lot easier. Other than that, maybe just don't worry so much about the technical aspects, but maybe if you're going to direct it, study up on acting or being a player, or do something so you understand what you're putting these actors through. And that way you can mesh with them a lot better, I think.
I'm standing here with Ryan from Google Me Love. Ryan, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your movie?
All right. So as mentioned, I'm Ryan. My film was Google Me Love. Well, it wasn't really my film. I wrote and directed it, but cinema is a collaborative thing. You don't do it alone by any means. I had a wonderful producer, Dimitra. My amazing EPs, executive producers, Lana and Andy Wachowski. The cast, Adam Brown, Leroyce Hawkins, Allison Torum. They really made it possible. I had some wacky lines in there, just a lot of dialogue, and they came to set prepared and they knocked it out of the park. We got some laughs last night, and that was really cool. So couldn't have done it without them. My wonderful costume designer, Emily Blood, and so many more. My DP, Chris. I want to make sure that they all know that I couldn't have done it without him, and it was an amazing opportunity.
It sounds like it was a wild ride, and it definitely came together beautifully. We were happy to show it. Ryan, I'm really just kind of curious, as you were going through this process, as you were getting the team on board, as you were trying to work things out, how did you keep yourself encouraged? I mean, it's a small project with a small budget. You don't have all the opportunity, all the revenue a big film has. How did you manage that process? What advice would you have to pass on for someone that, maybe grabbed their iPhone, started filming a movie, maybe got a good Panasonic hand cam and is just starting to get their hands and their feet wet? What would you say to kind of encourage them and keep them through that process?
Get yourself an excellent producer. That is the number one thing that you can do. I mean, if you can find somebody who knows who to hire, who can make the money go as far as it possibly can, then you're going to be in better shape than a lot of other people. I think the other thing is an attention to detail. Don't go to set and just pull out the camera. Make sure that the set reflects. If you're shooting like somebody's apartment, make sure that apartment looks like some place where that character would live. It's that sort of amount of thought that goes into making a movie, and finding people who you can delegate those small things to. Well, not small, but those things too makes a huge difference, because you don't have to be sitting there, tweaking out about every little thing. I guess that would be the number one thing you can do.
Absolutely. And Ryan, how about for the people who aren't quite at that process where what you got to do is put your head down, keep working through? What about the people who just have a good idea for something they think might be a good story, might be a good movie, might be a good screenplay, and just aren't quite sure how to get off the fence and get started building something? What advice would you give to those people?
I think the first thing that you can do you've got a good idea, but if you're looking to get started in the film industry, the first thing you should do is go find a PA job. Just be a production assistant for a couple of shows, see how sets work, see how they're run, figure out what each person in the crew is supposed to be doing. So that when you start to make your own project, who you can talk to. Like, oh, this person I know is really good at he's just really personable. Great, make them your producer, your production manager, so they can be there, talking to businesses to try and get you funding or something like that. And then, obviously, you just got to sit down and write it, which is not easy. Writing is is very difficult. And writing is rewriting, so don't just write one draft. Write a bunch, throw them out, and then when you've got something that you're really proud of, take it to somebody you trust to get it done. And it's a lot of work. It takes months to even put together a 15-minute movie. So you got to just kind of be undaunted by that that impending workload.
Absolutely. But it sounds like if you want to do it, the hardest part is sitting down and getting started, right?
Absolutely. I mean, once you get on set, it's just things just happen. And like the 5 days when we were shooting Google Me Love were unbelievable. They were amazing. And I remember, I would go to bed at night and I couldn't wait to wake up in the morning to get back to set, So you can get there and you can do it. You just, you got to sit down and decide that you can do it.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan, for joining us here at the Landlocked Film Festival. Carl Taylor here from the Landlocked Film Festival with Jimbo and Brenda.
Good to be here.
We're having a great time. It's a beautiful city.
Yeah.
Jimbo just showed the screen with us. We screened his film, Beautiful Jim. Jim, real quick, if you give us a 1-minute summary, what's your movie about?
Me.
Well, let's delve into it a little bit more.
Longer. Well, I've been a country songwriter, hit songwriter for 45 years in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm originally from Mississippi, and I've had songs cut by just about anybody you can mention, and Grammy nominated. And we've been married for 34 years, and I tested HIV positive in 1985, and almost killed me twice. I'm now non-detectable. And I'm here to speak about the current infection in America, which nobody is talking about. Every 9.5 minutes, a person is infected in America. Every 30-something minutes, a woman is. And I want to talk about how expensive the drugs are.
Well, let's start with that. So when you say non-detectable, what do you mean?
That means it's not detectable in my blood anymore. It doesn't mean it's not hiding in my spine somewhere. But I'm basically healthy after almost checking out twice.
So, what got you from there? Why don't you start by telling us a little bit more about the movie and the message the movie is trying to share with us, and we'll go from there.
Okay, I started writing a book because we lived under the secret of my infection for about 12 years. And I started writing a book because that was my therapy. I couldn't talk about it, so I'd write about it. And I've been working on it for about 20, 30 years, and I read it to a songwriter friend of mine who's also a Grammy-winning songwriter, Sandy Knox, and we spent the night over at her house after an event, and I got up early and she got up early, and I read her the rough of my book, and she was so impressed about it, she started a record label and signed me at 60 in a 20-year-old town. And so the book led me to a record deal, and when they released my record, I blogged on my website, jimbohenson.com, that about when I was 14 and a half, I climbed my hometown water tower. I was going to throw myself off because I thought my life was over. And I didn't. Once I got up there, I realized there was really nothing down there worth splattering myself on. And in 6 months' time, I had a publishing deal in Nashville, Tennessee. But I wanted to reach out on the release of my record and try to reach the young kids out there that are dancing around that dark hole that don't realize that it's brighter in the light of another day. You just got to get through it to get there. But the blog, in my blog about climbing the water tower, I talked about my childhood. And one of the memories was collecting bottles in my Coke in my bike basket and taking them to the Coke bottling company and selling them back. And there's a guy from Ole Miss who works for the documentary department. He was raised 20 years later, 6 miles away from me, and he was a bottle digger. As a kid, he went to old home sites and dug up bottles, and he dug up more bottles, Coke bottles from Newton, Mississippi than anything else because we had a bottling company there. And he kept one in his mother's attic. He was cleaning it out and went back to Ole Miss and sitting there looking at it, and he Googled Newton, Mississippi Coke bottle, and my water tower blog popped up. And he called and wanted to do the documentary on me based on that blog.
And just for the people listening, where are you from, Jimbo?
I'm originally from Newton, Mississippi.
Newton, Mississippi. So what brings you out here to Iowa City?
At the film festival, they called and said they wanted to show it, so we got in the car and drove 8 hours, and it's been a beautiful drive, and this is a beautiful town.
Oh, it's absolutely wonderful. So you had a blog, and then you had a book, and now you moved on to film. Why the change? Why did your message move from being best delivered on a blog to something else?
One thing led to another, like life. But
Hey, it happens to the best of us, doesn't
if
it?
you keep living, it keeps happening. But
Ain't that the truth? So, if there were one thing you wanted people watching your movie to remember after seeing your movie, after reading your blog, after looking through the book, what would that one thing be? What's the most important message you've been trying to get across?
to celebrate our differences instead of being separated about it or afraid of them. I think God made us all, and we all should be here, and we should all try to get along.
Jimbo, now one other thing we've been doing here at Landlocked this year, this is Iowa City. It's a beautiful town. We got the writing workshop up there. We got Prairie Lights. We've got all sorts of arts and cultural things. And we've got two kinds of people. We've got people that are about to make something and people that are on the fence about thinking they can get it done. So the last question I want to ask the two of you, what advice do you have for somebody that thinks they might want to do something, wish they had a story that could be told? What advice would you give to the person that's on the fence about getting out and involved like you did?
Well, pick a side and jump. It doesn't mean you have to stay there. Just do something. This world belongs to doers, and you have the ability to do anything you want to do. You might have to pick yourself up several times before you get there, but do it.
Ain't that the truth? And how about to the young kid or maybe the middle-aged man that just started making movies and is a little discouraged because of how tough it was? Was there a challenge you ran into that you learned something from? Is there some kind of lesson that you might want to pass on to that sort of person?
Just keep doing. Of course you're going to get knocked down. Of course it's hard. If it was easy, everybody would do it. But you just have to keep, not take no for an answer, and learn from what knocked you down. Learn as you go along. I'm almost 63, and I'm still picking myself up, and I'm still carrying on, and I suggest that you do the same.
Hey, we appreciate it. Thanks. We're happy to show your film. Hey, enjoy the rest of the Landlocked Festival here in Iowa City. Here from the Landlocked Film Festival with Ann from the movie Vetters. And I was wondering if just for a minute you could speak a little bit to your movie, tell us a little bit about the story.
Okay, the film's called The Vetters, All We Needed. It's a documentary, a feature, and it's about family survival and family bond and exciting athletic achievement. It's 6 very close-knit brothers and sisters from Chardon, Ohio, outside of Cleveland. And it's a very inspirational story of how they overcame poverty and the loss of their mother at a young age, and were raised by their father, and through his quiet heroism held the family together through their bond of running, and they went on to become nationally and internationally accomplished athletes.
So, Ann, when you started, you had a great idea, right? You had an idea for a story that already existed, a story about sacrifice, a story about struggle. But how did you get to that part where you had the story and you started putting something on paper and then on film? How did you get there?
Well, knowing the family, as I got to know the family, I realized what good storytellers they were. And I thought there's really something here. It's a local story, but there's universal themes of family and perseverance and triumph. And so I just got, made arrangements to interview them each separately, and just started doing the interviews. And then started pulling the script together and doing the editing. And overall, it took 6 years, and it was a labor of love, but it's been very rewarding.
6 years, labor of love, ended up being rewarding, which is awesome. That's what we love to hear here at Landlocked. How did you get through those 6 years? Because I'm sure there were down times.
Yeah, it was tough, and I have to give a lot of credit to my co-director, co-producer, Nancy Picorni, who wasn't able to travel here today from Cleveland. But she really was the one that kept pushing it through, because it was tough, and you do want to give up a lot of times. It's a lot of 1 step forward, 2 steps back, But, we like the Vetter family, persevered, yeah.
So if you had one piece of advice for a filmmaker that's in one of those I want to give up times, what would it be?
We found it helpful to try to break it down into manageable steps. You just break it down so that if you're editing 2 or 3 minutes at a time, complete it. You feel like you're making progress that way. Otherwise, it's just very overwhelming. I guess that's what I would recommend. Make it into manageable progress. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. And anything else you want to add for the audience here at Landlocked Film Festival?
Well, I just want to thank Mary and Kate and everybody at Landlocked Film Festival. This has been a great experience, and it's a great fest. And I want to thank the Vetter family for opening up their lives and allowing us to share their story on film.
Absolutely. Hey, thanks for letting us screen your movie. Carl Taylor here at the 8th Annual Landlocked Film Festival with some of the crew from the Whiskey Cookers movie we showed this afternoon, and give them a quick chance to introduce themselves.
I'm Bryce Bauer.
Dan Manat.
Dan, Bryce, thank you so much for joining us. We wanted to talk really quick about a couple of different things. One of the first questions, I noticed that you have an Iowa subject, and you've got an Iowa story there in Templeton Rye. How did you stumble onto an Iowa subject and decide it was something worth telling a movie about?
Well, Dan and I both have strong Iowa connections. I grew up in Western Iowa. Dan's family's from Western Iowa. Our families have been there for years. So we always heard of the story forever, the Templeton Rye bootleggers, the famous Templeton Rye bootleggers. And so that's kind of how we got into it. I don't know.
Yeah, we began developing this even before the Templeton Rye Company was formed 10 years ago in 2004. Bryce grew up in Audubon, just 10 miles south of Templeton. My family, mom and dad both grew up there. So, you don't get any closer to a story than that.
So you guys just stumbled into the story? How did it kind of get to that place where you knew it was a story worth telling?
Well, when you hear stories told by your family over and over again about drunk pigs and bootlegging priests and mayors who participated, you get the feeling that you have something special. And so we looked into it. To be fair, Bryce's father, who's a farming partner of my dad's, was the one who suggested it. I was starting in documentary filmmaking, was the one who suggested it, and realized we had a special story on our hands. And the more we started some early interviews, we realized we had something that was a story you just don't find every day.
So once you stumbled into that story that you don't find anyway, that story that made you say, wow, this is something I should sit down and try and get onto film. How did you get over that first kind of hurdle? How did you get started actually moving from a guy, a team of people with a great idea, to a team of people that were making a movie?
Well, in a story like this that's so much about local communities, the first step was really getting to know everybody in Carroll County, and especially in Templeton, and getting them to share with us what they knew. And what made this film so great was that they knew a lot, and they were really willing to share a lot of that with us. So that was the first major hurdle.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of great films, a lot of great documentary filmmakers, he as a filmmaker has to gain the trust of the subject. Think about The Thin Blue Line with Errol Morris, and films like that. In this case, we went to the mayor of Templeton, Ken Barron's house, made a presentation to members of the city council and so forth, and once we won the trust of the folks of Templeton, that we were on our way. But the other thing that's key is, that this was a historical documentary. A lot of folks think that it's all just about shooting good film, doing some good photoshopping and so forth. This took a lot of research, a lot of time, and not just internet research, time in the library and so forth. Bryce, good U of I graduate, spent a lot of time in rural libraries, the State Historical Society, the National Archives in Washington, D.C., the New York Library, New York Public Library. That made the difference between a decent film and really a world-class historical documentary. So one important bit of advice to documentary filmmakers is if you're just looking to mess around with the camera and Photoshop, have at it, go into feature films or storytelling, nonfiction, reality documentary. But if you want to do historical stuff, you need to learn to be just as happy in a dusty old archive library as anywhere else.
It's not easy to spend time in a dusty archive, and it's not easy to win the trust of subjects, especially in something so revelatory and close to the community as your story ended up being. What advice would you have for a young filmmaker or a person trying to tell a story that has kind of hit that point where it's a lot of work? What advice would you pass on to them?
I think that the thrill of seeing your project finished is really worth it, and also the thrill of getting to talk with the people that care as much about the project that you have spent all this time with, and getting to speak with them and hear what they have to say and sharing that thrill is fantastic. The other thing is local history, especially Iowa local history, is one of the unfortunate lost subjects of documentaries, of history in general. And to uncover that is something that is incredibly valuable to our state and to filmmaking in general.
My advice is have a day job. You're not going to make a lot of money doing this, certainly not quickly, if ever. And number two, have a lot of patience. Our project took 10 years, 10 long years. Fits and starts, in part because we did keep day jobs. Because we knew it was going to not be a moneymaker, and we weren't asking the town or anybody else to finance this. So, if you really want to do a big subject, and you want to do it right, it's going to take time. You're going to need a lot of patience, and you're going to need a lot of time.
10 years, a lot of patience, a lot of time. How did you guys stay encouraged through that process?
How did we stay encouraged? Just, the amazing thing about a documentary like this, where it is so historical based and research based, is, it may be 10 years, but we were finding new and fascinating details every couple of weeks. Dan and I live pretty far away, but still I was sending him emails of, oh, look at this document, he said, and he's like, well, did you notice that this relates to certain bootleggers or certain people in the story? So, 10 years was really nothing. It was a lot of fun every moment of it and interesting.
No, that's exactly right. I mean, a year, there were times that a year would go by, and especially for the folks in Temple, it's like, are you ever going to finish this movie? And it was frustrating to have to tell them, well, yeah, we're going to finish it eventually. But then Bryce would find something in the National Archives that had been sitting there for 80 years and say, Eureka! I found something nobody's ever seen. And he, pulls a rabbit out of a hat. And it was moments like that to realize that we were going to make a great film that kept our energy and our encouragement up.
Wow. Hey, thanks so much, you guys, for joining us, Whiskey Cookers, here at the 8th Annual Landlocked Film Festival. Taylor here on the green carpet at the 8th Annual Landlocked Film Festival with some of the cast and crew from Catchphrase. Give you guys a quick second to introduce yourselves.
I'm Bryn Krekel.
I'm Joe Clark.
Great to have you guys here. Hey, what got this movie out of the place where it was an idea into the place where it was a movie?
I mean, it's just that. It was just an idea. My roommate came out to us and said, hey, I just played Catchphrase with this really awful person, and we want to get that across in a 3-minute film. So it just kind of took off on a random night. Called up Bryn. Actually, I don't even have her number, actually. One of a friend called her and said, hey, will you be in this movie?
It's amazing what Facebook can do these days.
Yes. Wait, Facebook? Okay, yeah.
Something on the line. Bryn, what was it like? How did you deal with that call from your weird filmmaking friend saying, hey, I want you to be in my movie? How did you decide to actually commit and do that? What was it like?
Well, when your weird, freaky friend asks you for a favor to get in a movie, you know he must be pretty desperate if he's asking me. So, no, but I mean, I've seen some of the stuff he's done in the past, and we run around with the same group of people, and he needed help, and I think he did a great job, and I liked what he does. Smart kid.
I paid her $35 to say that, so...
You start small and you go from there. You start small and you go from
You
there.
got paid more for that comment than the movie, so it's working perfectly.
So I'm sure it wasn't all sunshine and daisies. How did you get through those parts where putting this thing together, you were like, why am I doing this? How did you get through that?
To be honest, it went pretty smoothly. There was a couple hiccups, but you really just have to push through and just use everything to your advantage. And someone once taught me about design thinking. Is that the concept? Yes. Stacey Walker over here. And that's just pretty much using every obstacle to your advantage. We had that talk like 2 weeks ago. And we made this like 6 months ago, but I think that's the point. Bryn, stop me, I'm rambling.
Stop.
All design thinking, everything. Absolutely. So before that, before the put your head into the trenches part, you obviously have that moment where you have a great idea. And you say, I know I have something here. I got to grab a camera. I got to get some help. I got to find some actors. And it's never as easy as it just sounded when I ran through that. Right. How did you keep your head up? How did you keep through those tough moments?
To be honest, we pretty much just designed these small movies around just hanging out with friends. I mean, it was literally 5 of us drinking wine and playing catchphrase. And there was cameras rolling, and it was a lot of fun. So it wasn't all.
Oh yeah.
I don't
it
remember.
It was just like hanging out. You know, you're not under pressure, and everyone's just having a good time.
Is that because you love what you do?
It is, yeah. And then we all got naked and made a really weird porn. So.
Well, there you go.
Is that FBA-TV applicable?
I don't know.
Okay.
Probably not.
Camera guy approved, yes.
Yes, all right.
That's how you know we're doing a good job.
Yeah, that's how you know it's real.
I don't have any other questions for you guys. I can't talk porn. What else have we got? Anything else? Stacy, you got something you want to add? You know Joe for a long time. You dealt with enough of his shenanigans. What's it like to be associated with a guy who's trying to film his friends hanging out and making something special about it?
It's amazing being associated with Joe because he's a very special guy. But I would like to ask Joe, what's next? What's in the works for Mr. Joe Clark?
Joe, we're going to have it here first on PATV. What's next for Joe Clark?
Catchphrase 2, catchphrase 3, catchphrase 4. It's pretty much going to be like the Rocky Balboa series where I'm going to be 60 in the boxing ring playing catchphrase. No, we are working on our next feature-length film. Can't go into too many details right now about it. So I want to play the really cool secret card. So, Bryn, shut me up again.
Shut up.
Okay, there we go, perfect.
It's going to be okay. We'll keep your secret here at the 8th Annual Landlocked Film Festival at the Angler Theater in downtown Iowa City. I'm Carl Taylor, and this has been the cast and crew of Catchphrase.